Believe it or not, there's really only 8 basic chords on the guitar. And today, not only am I going to show you the easiest way to make them, but it will also cover some basics of rhythm and strumming, as well as some exercise to get those fingers moving, and even a foolproof way to get you switching between chords with the greatest of ease. And since switching between some of these chords can be kind of a pain for some students, I've created a playlist of me switching between any and all of the chords, so you can do it along with me to turn that what would be a trudge hopefully into kind of a fun game. Oh, and I'll even teach you how to play A Horse with No Name. Cool? Cool. Cue the music. So first things first, we got to understand how to read these chord diagrams. There's going to be 6 vertical lines, which obviously represents the 6 strings on the guitar. Usually you'll see 3 frets. It's kind of like you're looking at a guitar hanging on a wall. So there's usually 3 frets represented. The numbers will usually be your fingers, so 1, 2, 3, and 4. I'm going to use a color method, so red would be 1, your index finger, green would be your middle, blue would be your ring, and purple would be your pinky. Other than that, there's really just the open strings, and some of them you'll play, some of them you won't. The ones you won't will be represented by a black circle. The ones you do play and leave open, strum to your heart's content, are going to be pink. So for our first chord today, we're going to go with an E minor. That's going to have our middle finger on the 2nd fret of the 5th string and our ring finger on the 2nd fret of the 4th string, and then you can leave all the other strings open. You're going to strum it. So generally speaking, when you're placing your fingers on the fretboard, you want the tip of the finger as close to the fret as possible. However, some of these are going to have multiple fingers in the same fret, and that's just going to be impossible. So likewise with this E minor here, you're going to have your ring finger as close to the fret as you can, and the middle finger is going to be back slightly. So one exercise you can do is literally just take one finger off and then the other finger off. Just try to get some independent motion going, right? Another thing you can do is take the whole thing off and then see if you can remake it. Generally speaking, that's what you would do. You'd strum it, you take it away, and you try and make it again. You can even start to think of these 2 fingers as a pair, and if you can start moving them up and down string groups. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 2 and 3, 3 and 4, 4 and 5, 5 and 6. And just seeing if you can kind of keep those moving as a stamp. Eventually, with all of these, you'll want all the fingers to go down like a stamp, but they're just not going to happen all at once just yet. So we'll have to find some compromise. That's a good one, though. I feel like maybe it won't be for you today, but if you try for it, you can start to get 2 and 3 as a pair. Another exercise you can do with E minor that actually turns it into a song is you can take your middle finger up 1 string and your ring finger down 1 string. So it's kind of like they split from the center outward. So the middle finger goes up, ring finger goes down. That's a big fancy chord. You can call it whatever you want. A lot of the times it's like D add 6, 9, whatever. Anyway, no need to get caught up on the confusion of how to name that chord because it's probably never going to come up again. However, it sounds great in the terms of Horse with No Name. Those are the only 2 chords in the song. And really, this is where we start to kind of develop our skills at switching. So one thing you can do is just take your sweet time and hope to get to the next chord as quickly as you possibly can, right? Another thing you can start to do is you can hold it for a certain amount of time. So we haven't discussed time yet, but basically most music that you're listening to is in 4, meaning you're just counting to 4 over and over and over again. And those groups of 4 beats are grouped into what is known as a measure or a bar. And essentially you can hold the chord for as long as you can, but if the next chord starts on the downbeat of 1, you don't want to be caught off guard. You kind of have to start switching before that other chord is finished ringing, which is fine, honestly. That's just how it's done. But the goal is to kind of reduce that amount of time. So start with like basically 2 beats, beats 1 and 2, and then use beat 3 and 4 to get to the next chord. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And once you're starting to feel comfortable with that, you can also do 3 beats. So you can hold it for 3. 1, 2, 3. Switch on 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So you can do that with a metronome. You can do that with drum beats. So you can do that with a metronome, or you can do that with drum beats. I have a playlist of different kinds of drum beats that I can add down below. And that's a good start, but that's not strumming yet. And although we're not really ready for full-on strum patterns yet, one exercise that I love to give students I call up on garbage, meaning you can kind of force your right hand up through the strings as you move to the next chord. Sounds like garbage, especially if you're going really slow, but it's kind of like patting your head, rubbing your belly. It's just going to kind of prep your body to be able to do two separate things at the same time, because a lot of strum patterns actually will have an up strum as like the last thing they do. So if you just kind of up strum on open strings, it sounds like garbage slow, but actually at a fast tempo, it kind of feels natural. It feels like more percussive than anything. And you'll start to notice that actually a lot of good guitar players do that. So for instance, you could play the E minor on this. And then what I want you to do is stare at your left hand and slowly but surely let the pick flop through all those strings and then down through the next chord. And the idea is that it doesn't matter how bad beats 3 or 4 sound, or whatever, how much time you need to get to the next chord, as long as the downbeat of 1 is a clean chord, you're on track. That's fine. So again, force your right hand to come up through the strings as you move to the next chord. And again, a lot of you will probably have one hand be like a deer in the headlight, you know? So you just want to make sure that as you go through these, that at least something's moving on the left hand as your right hand comes up through. Or, you know, if you happen to, a lot of students they want to fix that chord first before they even get the right hand going. I don't care how long it takes you to get up through those strings. Take your time. The most important thing is that you want to be relaxed and just get to the next chord with the greatest of ease if you can. So besides just strumming the chord, it's not technically a strum pattern, but what you can start to do today is just simply strum quarter notes, which are worth 1 beat. So you would literally strum every time you count a number. 1, 2, 3, 4. And again, you might not be ready to switch right on that 1. So teach your body to play a couple open strings. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. It's essentially garbage with all downstrokes. But eventually something like this will sound great if we do nonstop strumming. So again, I'm going to make another video on strum patterns and logistics of strumming, all that fun stuff. But today, all I want to kind of cover is you go down when your foot goes down on the numbers, and then what's in between can be subdivided in many ways, but we're going to subdivide it in eighth notes. That's the most common way to do it. And what we say in between to represent that eighth note would be an and our right hand is just going to completely follow our foot. So I'm going to move my head because you can't see my foot, but basically there's like a string tied to it. If I move my head back, my arm comes up, and that's exactly how you're going to strum, just nonstop down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up. And again, you can do 2 and 4 and 1. You can do it like that, but you can also, try and hold it as long as you can. So maybe keep 3 of them down. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So moving on from E minor, and before we get to the rest of the chords, I like to cover a couple exercises really quick. One thing you can do is you can place 4 fingers down on one string. So for instance, the 4th fret, 5th, 6th, and 7th fret on the 3rd string. And you can just practice moving one finger up one string and down one string. So move your first finger up to the 4th string and then down to the 2nd string, 4th, 2nd. You can even go wider, up to the 5th and down to the 1st. You'll find that the first finger is not too bad, but then when you switch to the middle finger, it starts to feel a little more restricted. So you want to kind of move it around with accuracy, hop it to the string that you're looking to make Making it all the way to the first can be difficult. The ring finger is arguably the most difficult. You just want to kind of move around, keep those other fingers steady. Oh, it's hard to talk and do it. I can't even making it down to that first string. That can be a real nice stretch in the back of the hand as well as down the forearm there. Pinky shouldn't be too bad. That's less restricted. But it's something to think about. The other thing I want to mention as far as exercises go, I mentioned just kind of picking up the fingers and moving them around. As we start to get more fingers down, you can pick up select groups of fingers. So you can pick up just one finger or multiple fingers. So for instance, here's that E minor again. If we put our first finger down on the third string, first fret, it becomes E major. So basically there are two types of chords that we're dealing with. There's major, which is generally considered happy, and minor, which is sad. Okay? And that's where most of the songs that we play kind of come from, those two basic emotions, right? And going back and forth between those is pretty easy. Just take that first finger off. Now what if we only took the middle finger off? Honestly, you don't even need to strum it. It's not going to sound great. You can pick up just the ring. We already practiced picking up 2 and 3, but now we got the first finger down, so it's a little different. You can also do 1 and 2, so keeping just the ring finger down, as well as what's left, ring finger and first finger. Okay, so just something to think about. There's plenty of stuff that you can do to kind of get comfortable moving between these. And honestly, a lot of the ground gain can be, Netflix marathon, just sitting back and forth and just going back and forth between those chords. There's only 8, so don't get overwhelmed. You will get these up and running, and once you do, like the video says, there are millions of songs you can play. For the next chord we're going to learn, it's going to be A minor. It's literally exactly like the E major chord, but we're just going to move everything down to the ground, 1 string each. And again, so now that we're starting to make chords with 3 fingers, I generally recommend a pair of fingers and 1 random finger. So obviously 3 is an odd number, and ideally they will all go down at the same time, but you can't, so might as well make a pair. And what happens is sometimes it's strategic to put the single finger down first and then the pair, and sometimes it's better to put the pair down and then the single finger. So for me, for the A minor, I always kind of start with my first finger on that second string and then bring 2 and 3 over as the pair. Okay, and you're only playing from 5 down for A minor. For the next chord, we got A major. We're going to start with our first finger on the second fret of the third string, and then we're going to surround it with our middle finger above it on the fourth string, second fret, and our ring finger on the second fret of the second string. So all fingers are tucked into that second fret, and you're playing from 5 down. Okay. Now, usually you don't switch back and forth between A major, E minor. It doesn't really come up too much, but let's talk about it right now just to kind of compare and contrast these two, because they look a little different because of the fingers, but actually your middle finger is right where it needs to be. So pick up your first and ring finger, put your ring finger on the third string and first finger down. There's A minor, pick those 2 up, keep that middle finger down. A major, A minor. For the D chord, I generally say like a peace sign or air quotes. You kind of want to think about it like that. For little kids, I think bunny ears. You can kind of come around the side. And you'll notice as you're making different chords, the D specifically makes you kind of rock on the corner of your finger there, kind of like you're turning a door handle and coming out that way. So first finger on that second fret of the third string, middle finger on the first string, second fret, ring finger in between them, and a little MBC, play from 4 down. That's a D chord. So throw it away, again, try to make 1 and 2, ring finger in between. Now, if you're running into some notes aren't ringing, there could be a couple different reasons for that. One is you're either not applying enough pressure. 2 would be another finger from another string is encroaching on that string's territory. So like a lot of times with a D chord, you come in shallow and the side of the ring finger will hit the side of the second string. So you really want to make sure you get underneath it and really get those knuckles not even to go straight, but to almost curve back around so they get out of the way of the string below it. Easier said than done, but something to shoot for. Our next chord is going to be G. There's a couple of different ways to make the G on the internet. I'm going to argue for 2, 3, and 4. Technically, the other ways are right. Some people say 1, 2, and 3. That's obviously a little more comfortable for people than 2, 3, and 4. So middle finger on the 2nd fret of the 5th string, ring finger on the 3rd fret of the 6th string, pinky all the way down to the 1st string, 3rd fret. The reason why I advocate for that over 1, 2, and 3 is because a lot of the times you're going to a C from this chord, and your middle finger and your ring finger are exact same shape you'll need for the C. And since I'm already here, I might as well tell you what that is. So if you just take your middle finger and your ring finger down 1 string, take your pinky off and put your 1st finger on that 2nd string, 1st fret, that's a C chord. So again, if you're doing this, that's a whole lot of motion that just does not need to happen, right? So you just want to make sure you take your 1st finger off, move 2 and 3 up, and then your pinky down. Really, as you start to practice switching between these, if and when that happens, I assume it will because they're very popular chords, you just want to make sure you're not like trying to throw everything away. That anytime there's a common string, finger, fret, any of that fun stuff, you just want to see if you can kind of keep that consistency to make your life easier. You don't want to rebuild it, go past it and rebuild it. So it's really see if you can start to move your middle and your ring finger. And in fact, this shape, it's a good one to kind of move around the strings. You'll actually notice it's not as obvious as you would think, but the D chord has that exact same shape. If you get rid of your 1st finger and then hop your 2nd and 3rd finger all the way to the skag, you get that G chord. Or if you hop it to the 4th and 5th strings, you get that C chord. One more thing I wanted to mention about the C chord is a lot of students will just strum right through all the things, and that open 6th string is kind of gross sounding. So you want to make sure, if you can, to only play from 5 down, but if you need to, and or if you're able to, see if you can like overextend your ring finger so it kind of goes up on top, like almost in between the 5th and the 6th string. Some people can get it where you can still hold pressure on that 3rd string, but kind of mute the other strings. That'll save you a lot of hassle and make it sound nice when you're playing. For our last chord, and probably our least popular chord that almost never comes up, you could almost change this to 7 chords, a million songs, is the D minor chord. It comes up. It definitely comes up, but usually more often associated with bar chords, that kind of a thing. But we're here, so we're going to learn it. Middle finger is going to go on that 2nd fret of the 3rd string, ring finger on the 3rd fret of the 2nd string, 1st finger on the 1st fret of the 1st string. You're going to play only from 4 down. Okay? All right, so now that we covered all the chords, you can head over to that playlist if you want to practice some of your favorite chord changes. Basically, I have it so I switch on beat 3, but if you want to hold it to only beat 2, you can do that. You can strum 8th notes and go down and up on garbage, all that fun stuff. You don't have to do exactly what I'm doing as long as you're nailing the next chord. That'll be fine. That'll keep you busy. That'll keep you sharp. And I hope to see you next time.